Hello everyone and welcome back once again. This is your science teacher here, and this time I am here with the new chapter of grade 6 science NCERT textbook, that is changes around us. Students, did you know every day our height increases by 1 centimeter? Isn't it just amazing? Students, our body is a wonderful organism that is capable of doing so many amazing things. And students, there are things happening around us every day. In fact, every second. And students, these changes around us are sometimes not even noticeable. But what are these changes? And above all, what do you mean by the changes? So students, basically in this chapter we will try to find out the answer of all these questions here, and we will discuss that what are changes and what are the different kind of changes that we basically come across in our everyday life. So let's start. Students, in our everyday life we basically experience or come across different types of changes around us, like day turning into night, the season changes from winter to summer, melting of ice to vapor, cooking of food, etc. And students, these changes basically take place all around us all the time. And students, all the changes are not of the same type. We get back the original substance in some and can't get back in others. So students, on this basis, changes around us can be categorized into two broad categories, and that are reversible change and irreversible change. Now students, let's discuss the both type of changes elaborately. So let's move on towards the next slide. Now students, the first change that we are going to discuss here is reversible change. Students, a reversible change is that kind of change that can be undone, or we can say it can be reversed, and these changes are basically observed in the physical state, size and shape of the substance. And students, a reversible change doesn't create a new material. For example, melting of ice, rolling of a chapati from dough. These two are the example of reversible change. Means here no new substances basically form in reversible changes. And students, neither the nature of the substances changes. Suppose if you could capture all the steam that is basically made when a kettle boils, then students, you could turn it back into water by cooling it. In the same way, if ice melt, then you can again make it ice by freezing it. And similarly, if you don't get the desired shape of a chapati from a dough, then you can again fold it and again rolling it until you get the desired shape of your chapati. So students, these kind of changes can be reversed and the nature of the substances always remain the same. Now students, the next kind of changes is irreversible change. Students, an irreversible change is a permanent change, and students, these changes cannot be undone. Means these changes cannot be reversed. And students, here in these changes always a new substances are formed. For example, rusting of iron, cooking of vegetables. As students, once a iron rusted, then it cannot be reversed back into its original form due to the changes in the nature of the substances. In the same way, once you cook the vegetables, you can't change the cooked vegetable into its original or into its raw form. So we can say that reversible changes are permanent changes, and these changes cannot be reversed once happened. Now students, it is important for all of you to know that substances and materials usually undergo two major type of changes. The first one is physical change. Students, physical change is basically a type of change where the physical properties of matter changes. And students, physical changes basically include the change of state of matter, change in color, order, solubility, etc. And students, the most important thing that you must keep in your mind that during a physical change, neither the composition nor the chemical nature of matter is changed. And students, during this change, the molecules of a substance rearrange themselves without affecting the internal composition. Means a physical change doesn't affect the chemical property of a substance. For example, like boiling of water and melting of ice represent reversible physical change, whereas growing of height is an irreversible physical change. Means that if you boil water, then students, obviously it will evaporate, but again you can convert it into water by the process of condensation, but ultimately the product that you will get is always remain the water. Means there will be no change. So we can say that boiling of water is a physical change. But what kind of physical change it is? It is reversible physical change. Means it can be reversed. Whereas growing of height is also a physical change, but it is irreversible physical change. Means once height increases, it cannot be reversed. So a physical change can be of two types: reversible physical change and irreversible physical change. Now students, the next kind of change is chemical change. Students, a chemical change is a type of change where the chemical properties of matter changes. And students, these kind of changes are always irreversible in nature because the original substances get converted into new substance. Means the substance after formed chemical change cannot be brought back to its original form. For example, cooking of rice. As you all know, the raw rice is basically hard in nature, whereas the cooked rice is soft in nature. And students, once the rice is cooked, then you cannot brought back it to its original form. In the same way, burning of matchstick cannot be brought back into its original form. And students, due to this property of chemical change, substances show variation in their reactivity, and due to this chemical reaction always results in a new product. Now students, make a quick recall of physical change and chemical change by discussing the differences between the two. So let's start physical change. Students, as we discussed earlier, that physical change is a change in which no change in the composition of the matter, whereas chemical change is a change in which the whole composition of matter changes. The next one, as we discussed, that physical changes are reversible in nature, whereas chemical changes are irreversible in nature. And we also learned and discussed earlier that in physical change, no new products are formed when an object undergoes physical change, whereas in chemical change, always new products are formed. And in physical change, no impact on the molecular composition of the substance. Means during physical change, the matter remains the same. There isn't any kind of changes in the nature of the substance. But in chemical change, the whole composition of the substances changes. Whereas in physical change, a few changes occur when cooling or heating is done, whereas chemical changes involve changes during absorption or release of energy. Now students, similarly, there are many other ways to bring about changes in substances. The first one is by mixing two substances together. Means by mixing two substances together, we can change the nature of the substance. For example, students, if you add a small amount of curd starter to warm milk, then you will observe that it led to conversion of milk into curd. And this is a irreversible change, because once the milk is converted into curd, then we cannot brought back curd into milk. But students, when we add salt to water, then the solution that we basically get is salty in nature, means salty in taste. But students, it is a kind of reversible change, means we can separate the salt from its salt solution just by evaporating the water on heating. Now students, the next way by which we can bring about changes in substances is by expansion and contraction. Students, as you all know that in order to make tools like an axe, saw, the ring of its iron blade is basically heated, as you can see here in this image. And students, heating allow the iron to expand and become larger in size, means after heating the iron become larger in size, and then when we allow to cool down it, then it contract again, means then it will become again smaller in size, leading to a tight fit of the handle. And that's how we can make tools by expansion and contraction. Now students, with this topic here, your chapter number 6 is completed. Now I will be come back soon with another chapter. Till then, stay home, stay safe and stay healthy.